Hello and welcome to Move or Improve. I'm Debbie Miller, your host. And I've been talking about places to retire. Most of them have been in the U.S., but I thought it would be fun to talk about retiring overseas, retiring abroad, being an expat. And I've invited my guest today, who is an expert. She is Kathleen Evans. She's International Living Magazine's Costa Rica correspondent. And she survived her childhood in brutal Chicago winters, but she's always dreamed of an exotic place to call home. So in 2013, she and her husband moved to Costa Rica to enjoy buckets of sunshine. She's going to share her expert tips on choosing a place to live and what to know before you go. So welcome to the show, Kathleen. I appreciate your joining me.
Debbie, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to connect with your audience.
Awesome. Me too. Let's get started. What area of Costa Rica do you live in now, and why did you choose that area?
Yeah, actually, just to give everyone kind of a quick geography lesson, some people get Costa Rica confused with Puerto Rico and think we're an island, which we're not. So quick geography, we are in Central America, bordered by Nicaragua to the north, Panama to the south, and then the Pacific Ocean coastline to the west and the Caribbean side to the east. So we are not an island, and we are an independent country. So yeah, so we actually live in the northwest province of Guanacaste in a popular tourist town called Tamarindo. And we looked at a lot of places around the country, but I always wanted to live on a beach, so that was kind of a big thing there. And we chose Tamarindo because it has a very international vibe. It's not unusual to find 5 different languages walking down the street. There are a lot of social activities. There's live music. And it's fairly close to the provincial capital of Liberia. It's about an hour and 20 minutes away, and that's where there's a major international airport. Our big hospital is there, major shopping, and that sort of thing. But the population of our town is about 3,000 to 5,000, depending on the time of year.
Oh, so what times of year are more popular than the winter, obviously, when people want to get away from the snow?
Yeah, absolutely. Tourism tends to swell during what we call high season, which is pretty much from November through whenever Easter is. And then we see another bump in summertime as North Americans typically take time off with their kids.
Well, there you go. I have a lot of friends who vacationed in Costa Rica, but I think living in Costa Rica is a little different. And so I kind of wanted to focus on actually living there. Do you have any kind of a budget or a cost of living feel that you could share with people as to how much you might have to spend to live there comfortably?
Yes, absolutely. Of course, your lifestyle is really going to dictate what your budget will be. Some people prefer to live very extravagantly, and they have that sort of budget to do so. I usually give a $2,500 monthly budget as kind of a low end, but very realistic to live comfortably for a couple here. And if you're living in a more rural area, it's going to be less. If you're in a very popular, high-end suburb, you're probably going to be paying a little bit more. But that's kind of a good estimate of $2,500 for a person, or for a couple. Sorry.
Okay, great. Well, what about healthcare and hospitals and medical? If you have to go to the doctor, we have urgent care here, but what is it like in Costa Rica? Where do you go and what the costs might be?
Yeah, there are, there's a public healthcare system in Costa Rica, and once you have your residency, You actually pay a small percentage of your claimed retirement income into that system, and then you can use any of the public hospitals, doctors, and clinics. And then we also have private hospitals available and private clinics. And for many people who live here as expats, they choose a blending of both. So they may get their prescriptions at the public pharmacy, but then they may have a private policy as well. And people choose those because they want to go to either a private hospital, have their surgeries done immediately, because sometimes there's a wait for the public system. And a lot of these have a travel rider as well. So if you're an expat living here, but you return back to the States or wherever your home country is, this will cover you there for an additional 60 days.
Well, that's good to know. So how would somebody find out about the private facilities that are available? Is there a website or something?
Well, actually, depending on what service you end up using, you might want to check through well-known U.S. companies like United Healthcare has a Latin American arm called BMI. And then Blue Cross Blue Shield also has policies here. So that's a good way to check which providers take those insurances, as well as TRICARE Overseas, which is ex-military insurance. There are additional hospitals and clinics that are now taking that as well.
Interesting. Okay. Well, what about communicating with the outside world? And, well, first of all, how long have you lived in Costa Rica? Because you're such an expert.
Yeah, actually, we just passed over our 7-year anniversary here.
Wow. Oh,
yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, so you really are a knowledgeable expert on the whole thing. What about communicating with the outside world? How is, the technology over there?
Well, I can tell you every single person has a cell phone pretty much. Yeah, it's the way of the world. Internet is very good in most places. If you're going to be out in the remote jungle, you may have some issues with that and with cell tower coverage, but any of the places that most expats would want to live, internet is very good. We do have some new fiber optic companies coming in. And as far as communications, people use Skype. I mean, we're talking on Skype right now, Zoom, FaceTime, WhatsApp, all very popular. And
yeah.
So it's a great way to keep in touch with family and friends. You don't feel like you're that far away.
And I'm sure you probably have a home that's large enough to accommodate all the immediate relatives and friends that want to visit you because you're in Costa Rica.
It's funny. The first several years, we had to start a booking calendar just to keep it separate. It's like, oh, no back-to-back visitors. So, yeah.
You have to have time to change the sheets and take a breath of fresh air for sure. But you
right.
have an Airbnb for all your relatives.
Yeah, but it's great. It's fun. We love showing off the beauty of Costa Rica and the nature here. It's quite a cool place.
Absolutely. Well, what about, if let's say you want to visit, obviously that's one aspect, but what if you wanted to apply for residency? What's involved with doing that?
Yeah, actually, Costa Rica has made it fairly easy to acquire residency. There are 3 main pathways. There's one called the pensionado, and that's basically a pensioner. So all you have to do is prove you have a pension for life or you have Social Security income, and you can apply that way. The minimum amount is just $1,000. So if you're a couple and one has a higher one, you can apply with the lower amount, because that's how your payments are figured out into the public health care system. So you want to go with the lower number. There's also one called Rentista, and this basically you put $60,000 into a Costa Rican bank account to prove over the next 2 years you have income to draw from. So you can start your residency process that way. Or there's the inversionista, which is basically an investor. And if you invest a minimum of $200,000, whether that's in a plot of land, whether that's in a business, or whether it's in your personal home or condominium, you can do it that way. And in fact, my husband and I went that route because we're not old enough to draw on Social Security yet, and we don't have pensions. So we sold our home in the U.S. and then bought something here, and then we were able to apply.
That's interesting. So what kinds of housing, I mean, I focus mostly on housing issues since I'm in real estate, but what's the range of housing that somebody could look for? What would a condominium versus, an estate with several acres, or what are the options?
Right. Well, just like real estate in the U.S., a little place out in the country outside of Des Moines is going to cost so much less than a cool little condo in downtown San Francisco, right? So you've got quite a huge range, but you can find very, very nice North American style 2-bedroom, 2-bath homes for $200,000 and up. You can even find them for less, depending on, of course, whether you're in a more rural area or a very popular one or suburban area, that sort of thing.
Interesting, because $200,000 doesn't get you diddly squat where I am. But is it possible for someone to keep their residency in the U.S. and buy like a vacation home? Is there a minimum requirement as to how long you have to live in Costa Rica to be considered a permanent resident? What are the rules on that?
No, once you have your permanent residency, you only have to be in the country, I think, 1 day every 2 years. So if you have your residency and you want to travel the world and, keep a vacation rental there, that's perfectly fine. You pretty much have all of the rights of a citizen, except you can't vote and you can't get a passport.
Right, for sure. Yeah. So what about, bringing Fido with you or Fifi? Are pets welcome? Do they have to be quarantined before they can run free, or what are the rules on that?
Yeah, no, actually, pets are very welcome. When we moved here, we traveled down with our dog. And I always say, first check with your airline, just to make sure you know what all their requirements are. There's certain times of year they won't fly if it's too hot or too cold, what type of container, crate you would need, that sort of thing. And then you work with your vet, and they have an international health form that they fill out. You have to have a rabies certification. And basically this international form lets the country of Costa Rica know everything's up to date with your pet. Then you take that form to the USDA Plant and Animal Division in your state capital. It can be mailed, and that's within 10 days of flying. And then once